Okay, we're starting the new parak on Daf Choches Amud Aleph, Cheskes Habatim. Cheskes Habatim v'Aboyros v'Asichim v'Amaoros. The chazaka that a person gets in a house, or a boyrus and amaris, which is a round hole or a ditch or a cave, v'ashevches and a coop. Now, let's start with a couple of things. First of all, chazaka. We always have a chazaka. We have chazakas throughout Shas, right? You have a chazaka. Someone has a chazaka that he's been doing something, so he's going to continue to do it. Over here, we're talking about a particular chazaka, and as we're going to become clear over the next few, but we're talking about the chazaka of someone who has been in possession of a field, and he's demonstrating his possession. And we know, let's say Reuven is the one who's, let's say Shimon is the one who's currently demonstrating his possession of the field. But in addition to Shimon's demonstration, his chazaka, we know that prior to that, Reuven had owned the field. So Reuven was the original owner, and now Shimon is in possession of it. And Shimon's saying, it's mine. As we're going to see, Shimon has to be saying that he bought it from Reuven, or he garshed it from Reuven, or however he got it from Reuven. But he said, I got it from him legitimately. So we say, normally, someone who purchases something has to keep his shtar to be able to demonstrate how he got it, to take it away from the original owner, the cheskes marakama, the chazaka of the original owner. But in a case where Shimon, who's now the holder, and now has been holding on to it for 3 years, as we're going to see, we're going to say it's going to be 3 years, he can say two things. The 3 years are saying almost two independent things. One, the fact that he has it for 3 years shows that it belongs to him. And secondly, since he held it for 3 years and the first person did not protest, we can trust Shimon when he says, I lost the shtar. He says, I can't prove that I bought it from Reuven because, how long can they expect me to hold on to a deed? It's been a long time and he never complained. So therefore, I lost it, but I've been using it for 3 years and no one took it away from me. As we're going to see later on in the Gemara, this is a little bit different from the rule. We're going to see in today's Gemara. This is a little bit different from a rule that we're also familiar with of adverse possession. In New York, I think there's such a rule. I know that I learned this in law school, that if someone lives on someone's property or makes use of someone's property and the other person doesn't protest, then you can become the owner of the property because of the fact that you've been using his property. For example, a common example of this is if someone has a driveway that infringes on his neighbor. It was made mistakenly, or however it was made, but it's on the property that's listed on the deed. And he's been using it for the last 20 years, every day parking his car 1 foot into the neighbor. Under New York law, that's adverse possession. You now own, you have a right, at least an easement, to use your fellow's property. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about someone who says the fact that I used it for 3 years, that makes it mine. He's just saying that it was mine, and to overcome the presumption that the original owner remains the owner, my cheskes gimel sham, the fact that I've been living on it for 3 years, overturns that presumption, and now it becomes the job of the original owner of Reuven to prove that he did not sell it to me. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. So now, again, back to our mission. Now that I had my little soliloquy. Cheskes habatim, the chazaka of a house and the baris and the ma'aros, v'ashevches and a kid's chicken, a coop, a dove coop. So all these things are things that are constantly used. There's no off season for these things. The baris and tzirchamaris are used for water. A house you live in. A shevich your doves live in. And a bathhouse, ubeis habaden, a place that's used to press olives, ubeis hashlochen, an irrigated field, An irrigated field is constantly getting watered from an internal water source, so therefore it's usable year round. Va'avadim and avodim, even though avodim are not karka per se, but as we're going to see, they're karka legabi that you can have a chazak in them. And of course, avodim are used the entire time. And after we give all these examples, the Mishnah defines the common thread of these things, that these are all things that they're used year round, they're used consistently. So all of them, all of them, you can make a chazaka like we described to overcome the cheskes marakama, the chazaka, the claim of the original owner. If the new owner holds on to it for 3 years, from day to day, meaning if he started on July 23rd, so if he has 3 years later, July 23rd, he still owns it, or he's still in possession of it, that's going to be a cheskes gimel shanim to overcome the chazak of the original owner. Sdei habal, or what is this? Beis, I'm sorry, way down here. Sdei beis habal. A sada that's not a beis hashloch, and it's not an irrigated field, but rather it's a field that is only watered from the rain. It also has a cheskes 3 years, but it doesn't have to be a full 3 years, ending and starting on the same day. And the Gemara is there's different pshatim. Some of the Rishonim say that's one sheet, and then the next 2 sheetas are 2 different sheetas. But Rashi learns that the next 2 sheetas are explaining that sheet. When we say it's Ein Milayim, how does that work? Should be Shmalayim Gimel Chadash and B'Rishayna Gimel B'Achroina. U'Shnei Masa Chodesh Be'emtza. Bishmal says you don't need a full 3 years. All you need is 3 months of the first year, 3 months of the last year, and the full 12 months in between that he has to be using it exclusively. Hari Yud Ches Chodesh. So all he needs is to have 18 months, and that's enough to be a chazak. So we're going to see in the Gemara a little bit more. We'll soon see in the Gemara. We're going to see a little more meat. Good morning, Dovi. A little bit more meat on how that will work, how we will be able to have a chazaka. But the idea is that when someone has a field that is determined by the weather when he could use it, so it's not expected that he's going to be using it all the time, since it's the weather dependent. So his use of it will depend on when the weather comes through. In Eretz Yisrael, you only have rain at certain times. So this person, as long as he had used it for 3 months in the first year, and then the full 12 months of the second year, then so he never lost his exclusive use of it. Then he used it for another 3 months of the final year. The original owner, can't say, I saw no reason to object to his using it because it wasn't yet 3 years. No, because you knew that the times that he could use it are inconsistent, meaning Ruvain, the original owner, you knew that it could be he's only using it 3 months in a year because of the weather. So the fact that you didn't object to it indicates that you really were abdicating your rights in the field, because it often is only used for 3 months in a year. So the fact that he used it for 3 months and you didn't say anything, you were basically saying, I'm giving up on the use of that year. Rabbi Akiva, he says it's only 1 month in the first year and 1 month in the last year, which equals up to 14, which is the same cheshbon, but just with 1 month instead of 3 months. He holds even just using it for 1 month is enough, is because of the inconsistency of the use of the field. So the fact that the possessor, the machzik, the person who's trying to make the cheskes gomel shanim, used it for even one month, would be enough for the previous owner to complain and be meicha to protest if he saw him using it. Amr Rabbi Shmuel says, "B'medva mamurim." When do I say this? Meaning, Rabbi Shmuel happened to say that you need, in the case of a base a base habal, of a stay habal, a sada that is sustained from the rain, and therefore it's used inconsistently, and therefore it could be only as little as 18 months. That's only b'stei loven. That's only a field of wheat. That a field of wheat that you can only have successive uses of it. You use a field of wheat, it takes however long it takes for a crop to grow, to be planted, to grow, and then to be reaped. Ava b'stei ilon, if you have a sada, we normally think of a sada made of grain, but if you have an orchard of trees, which you can have a bunch of different types of trees. Kana says tuasai, he can bring in his tuasai over here is an unusual lashon. Rashi says yayin shel gfanim. Usually Kana says tuasai you think is grain. We're talking about trees. So the Gemara often categorizes vineyards, grapes as trees. So if he brings in his grapes to make wine, and he harvested his olives in order to make olive oil, Kana says kaitzai, and he brought in his figs in order to dry them up and make dried figs, even though he did all of them at the same, essentially within the same year, that's going to be enough to make a cheskes gimel shanim, hara'elu gimel shanim. So what he's coming to say is that a cheskes gimel shanim is not really that it's the time span of the 3 years that makes it a chazaka. It's the fact that you did a full-fledged crop. Normally, it's the crops of a year, but since over here we're talking about in the same orchard, you had 3 different types of trees, which is more doable by trees. Obviously, you won't have one field that has different types of crops on it. You don't have alfalfa mixed with wheat. That wouldn't work. It wouldn't be very efficient. It'd be hard to do. But if you have trees that they could have different fruit on them and they could be picked at different times, you could have even within 3 years, even within 1 year, you don't have to have bedavka 3 years. Okay. Zakt the Gemara. Amr Rav Yochanan. Shemati me Helcha Usha. I heard from the Helcha Usha, the people who went to Usha, they would say, Minayin l'cheskes gimel shanim. Where is this whole idea that you need a chazaka of gimel shanim, which we've defined as, depending on the circumstance, it could be really less than 3 years, and it essentially means you have to have 3 crops, depending on the different shittas. Show you. So where does it come from? Mishar Amud. It's learned down from Shar Amud. Fortunately, Bava Basra is just 2 mesechtas after Bava Kama, so we remember what a Shar Amud is. A Shar Amud is an animal, a shar that shtacht. It gored someone 3 times. It aggressively attacked someone 3 times. So it's not something you would expect an animal to do. The animal doesn't normally attack people. So the first 3 times, the owner only has to pay chatzi nezek because he didn't expect it to happen. But once it happens a 4th time, then the Torah says he's a muad, the shar becomes a muad, and he has to pay nezek shalom. So we say, Mashar hamuad kimin shenagad gimel negichas, nafik le mecheskes tam, become le becheskes muad, just like the 3 acts of a shar, the 3 gorings of a shar, takes it out from being a tam. It brings it from its original status of being a tam, and it brings it into the chazak of a muad. Hachanami, even the achla klashnin, since he had 3 years, 3 times this new owner used the possessor used the field. One, like even according to last sheet, it could even be within the same year, 3 crops. But according to the shita, even the shita, the case where you use it a whole year, each year is an individual unit of its own, of use, and since 3 times you demonstrated that it's your field, and there was no protest from the original owner, and you demonstrate to the world that it's yours. Once you do that 3 times, its status changes. Its status changes from the original owner, from Reuben, and now it belongs to Shimon, the one who's in possession of it. Just like by Yishar, when it's shtach 3 times, it goes away from its original status of being a shar tam, a shar that doesn't shtach, and it does it and it does it 3 times. Now it's no longer the same status. The status has changed. So kivan the achla tlashne nafak l'mishus moicha v'kamal l'mishus loikech. It goes out of the rishus of the original owner, and now it's in the rishus of the person who's possessing. In fact, the Gemara, how could you compare the two? Imashar amu ad negicha revius le'mechayev hachanami at shnor revius le'kaima b'rishusei. If you're comparing it to a shar muad, it's true that it's 3 times the tam, but until he shtachs the 4th time, he's not chayiv. He doesn't automatically become chayiv after he does 3 negichas. So why don't we say if you're learning the din of cheskes gimel shanim by someone who got a sada, that it's now assumed to be his, let's say until he does a 4th year, that's when it becomes his, just like only when an animal shtachs after it gores a 4th time, that's when he's chayiv. Zaktamar, what kind of kasha is that? Hachi hashta. The point is, no, it's once the animal shtachs, once the animal gores 3 times, it immediately becomes a muad, but its status as a muad is not relevant until it gores a 4th time. So its status changed immediately. The idach, and the 4th one, until he shtachs, until he gores a 4th time, his status is irrelevant. It changed, but it didn't make any difference. But over here, as soon as the status changes, immediately after 3 years, the assumption changes from that it belongs to the original owner, and now it belongs to the person who has possessed it for 3 years. This is what we had mentioned before. This is not like adverse possession, this chazaka. It's not the chazaka itself that makes it belong to this person, that makes it belong to Shimon. It's only because Shimon claims that it was sold by Reuven. But if Shimon would just say, it belonged to Reuven, and one day I saw Reuven wasn't there, he was away on vacation, so I moved in, and I was on it for 3 years, that would not be sufficient for Shimon to keep it. Chazaka only is enough to buttress a taina if a person has a plausible explanation of why it belongs to him. But the fact that he's using it itself does not make it change possession. But the Gemara is asking, if we're learning it from Shara Muad, why should that be the case? Let's say just like a Shara Muad, doesn't make a difference there's no tainus involved. Once the animal gored 3 times, it automatically becomes a muad without anyone saying that, oh, you see, it's becoming you should have watched this animal from the beginning. There's no tainus. But we know that the halacha is not like that. Legabi a chazaka, that a chazaka is gimel shanim, unless it is a taina, unless there is a plausible claim or an actual claim by the person who's possessing, it's not going to make it change chazaka. Zaktamara time of mai damrin and dilma kedekamer. The Gemara says no. It's the different situations. By a cheskes gimel shanim, the reason why we say he has to make us a taina is we only give it to him because maybe it's like he said. But if he doesn't make a taina, we should make a taina for him. The point is that a cheskes gimel shanim without a taina is missing something. So while we can learn out from a shara muad that after 3 years the assumption changes, but that's enough. That's sufficient by a shara muad to change its status. But because we're trying over here to say that this Shimon is saying that he got it from Reuven, without the taina, he has nothing. There's nothing to talk about. We don't make a taina for him, and then his claim is missing an integral part. So therefore, it only works when he makes a taina. I don't know if you remember a couple of days ago, we had that this is not true by a lekeach and a yerush. If someone has a cheskes gimel shanim on something that he got from his father or that he purchased, in that case, we will make a taina for him because he has a plausible reason why he wasn't able to know whether the person who he got it from had a taina for him. So therefore, the chachamim are tying in his place. But if he was the one who got it directly from the person who was the original owner, then it's on him to make the taina. Maskeflo Ravira. Reb Avira asked another question on this explanation of Cheskes Gimel Shanim that we're learning it from Shar Amud. Elamayata, macha shaloi befanav loy tehevi macha. Like we're saying, we have been mentioning the way we've understood Cheskes Gimel Shanim is that Shimon is saying, I bought this property from Reuben, and now I've been holding it for 3 years, and I lost my shtar, which I'm allowed after 3 years. It's normal to lose a shtar. And since I have it for 3 years, that should provide me with the assumption, with the legal presumption that it's mine. And now Reuben is the one who has to bring a raya that he didn't sell it to me. But this presumption will not hold true if Reuven was standing at the gates yelling at Shimon, get out of my field, get out of my field. He makes a macha, then it's not a cheskes gimel shanim. The whole point of a cheskes gimel shanim is that you were there without anyone protesting. But if Reuven protested, then in that case, technically, Shimon does not have a right to say that I lost the shtar because I knew I was on it safely. But you see that Reuven is protesting. You got to watch your shtar under those circumstances, and therefore it's not you don't have a cheskes gimel shanim. But the Gemara says if we're learning out from Shor Amud, this macha that Shimon makes to stop the cheskes gimel shanim in its tracks, it should only be a valid macha if he's making it directly in front of Reuven. That Reuven makes it directly in front of Shimon. That Shimon himself sees it with his own eyes that Reuven is protesting. Dunya de Shar Amud. It should be just like a Shar Amud. Ma Shar Amud b'fan of Be'inan. Just like the Shar Amud, which we learned back in Bava Kama. There's a ritual legal way to make a shar into a Shar Amud. It's not just if the animal gores 3 times, it automatically becomes a Shar Amud, but rather each time the witnesses have to go to the owner of the shar and say, your shar struck someone, you got to pay chatzi nezek. And in addition to the chatzi nezek, he has to go to Bezdin. They have to say it in front of him and say, your shar gored, and therefore you have to pay chatzi nezek. And once it happens 3 times, then it becomes a mud. So afachanami b'fanabinan, which is not the case. The truth is, Lagabi Cheskes Gimel Shanim, you don't have to do it you don't have to make a macha in front of the person who's possessing the land. All you have to do is in front of 2 witnesses. It doesn't have to be in front of Bezdin and in front of the person who's possessing the land. So why is the taka different? Because what is asking is a kasha. If we're learning that from Shor Amud, it should have the same din, that the macha has to be in front of him. So Hasam v'huad balav tzif. Over there it says v'huad b'balav l'gabi muad. The Torah tells you that it has to be in front of the owner. Hacha chavracha chavra islay, v'chavra the chavracha chavra islay. But over here, all we don't have to satisfy the pasuk that says that it has to be in front of the owner. You're doing it just in order that he should become aware that there's someone who's protesting. So then you could just depend on the fact that your friend has a friend, and your friend's friend has a friend. If someone's protesting in front of, we often say there's such a thing as a koil. So over here there'll be a koil, and the word will get to the owner. And once the owner hears about it, he'll know that he has to watch his shtar. But there's no requirement per se that it has to be in front of his face, like we find by a Shor Amud. Track to Gemara. Uluremeyer Damar. Point to Remeyer that says. He says this back in Bava Kama. Richak Nigichaisav, the Gabi Sharamud. If a person if the Negichas, the Torah basically, the way the Torah describes the process of an animal going from a Shar Tam Shar to a Shar Muad, is it describes that the Shar gored 3 days in a row, or 3 separate days. So he says, Richak Negichasav Chayiv. If the Shar did its Negichas on separate days, then he's Chayiv to pay Nezek Shalom. Kirav Negichasav, on the other hand, if he did it all on one day, like Kol Shekain, then it's certainly the owner gets notice. You see that if it's spread out, you could say it happened one day, it happened a different day. So maybe the animal is, each day something happened that got it worked up. But if it happened 3 times on the same day, it certainly is indicative that the animal has a bad temper and you got to watch it. So according to that, what happens if someone ate 3 te'enim within 1 day? 3 peiros, 3 fruit. And what would be an example of a fruit that can become fully ready to be processed at different times? Meaning, obviously, when it comes to crops, you have to harvest them at the proper time. Now, a field of wheat all becomes ripe at the same time, and it all gets harvested at the same time. But a te'ena is example of a type of crop that you could come in the morning and you'll find 1 te'ena is ready, 1 tree is ready, and the tree next to it is not. You come in the afternoon and that one is ready, and then you come at night and the third one is ready. So you could have 3 separate harvests in 1 day. So it should be just like Rameir said by a Shar Muad. If it gores 3 times in 1 day, it becomes a Shar Muad. Let's say that if you had a chazaka of doing a harvest of your crop, even if it's all in the same day, it should be a chazaka. So the effort to Gemara, no, it's not a comparison. Mashar Muad be'idne the isne l'haynegicha less l'haynegicha. So the Gemara says that each muad, each animal that's gored is a separate event. So the animal did 1 goring and that's done. Then it does another goring and then that's done, and there's a third. But Lagabi, these crops of Te'enim, even though in the morning the 1 tree is ready to be harvested and the other's not ready, but they're still there. They already have Te'enim on them. They're just not fully ready. So they all exist together at the same time. So you can't define them as 3 separate chazakas. That he's being yotze the requirement of having 3 separate chazakas, because it's not similar to Sharamud. Sharamud, each one is a separate entity. Each one is a separate unit. But Legabi, the Te'enim, there's overlap because the Te'enim are all in existence at the same time. Hachanami, it's required that each one should not be in existence at the same time. Correct the Gemara, but in that case, I'll ask you even a slightly different case. What if he ate 3 peiros in 3 days? Kugoin slaf. Slaf is a kind of tree, which Rashi, you have to look at Rashi and Tosfos together, but they say it's something that it matures at the beginning in 1 day, in the first day, when one of the 3 slafs is ready to be harvested. The other slafs are so small that they're as if they don't exist. So Tosfos says, "Slaf basu d'shanile mitaina parach mitzlaf teina gedoylehi b'shas shenoidel chaver tamani ilan el shloi ispashla." The teina is a large size, but it's just not ripe. Adayin avol slaf kotana pri harbe shein lachas. The slaf, each slaf, the ones that are not ready, are tiny, and it's as if they don't. It's as if they don't exist. They're not chashav. Lahevi chazaka over there, it should be a chazaka because they're not overlapping. One slough doesn't have any chashivas at the time that you're harvesting the other slough. And for the Gemara, no, even so, Haslam Peira Mia, even though it's as if it doesn't exist because it's so small, but it does exist. You can't say because it's so small, we disregard it. Since that little bud is going to eventually become the fruit as the one that you're harvesting now, you can't define it as if the 3 days are 3 separate events, and therefore you don't have a chazaka of Gimel Shanim with that. Okay, I'll tell you a different case. What if he does three peiros in 30 days? Aspasasa is a fodder that's fed to animals, and if a person wants, he could let it grow for 30 days and be fully grown, but people harvest it within 30 days, and then they let it grow back. That same aspasasa, so it grows back a new version, and you cut that down, and then you do it again. Lahavi chazaka, because over there, what you're cutting each time is new growth. Zak the Gemara, what do you mean? Hechidami the kadiach va'achla. As soon as it grows, he cuts it down, and then he waits for it to grow. The kadiach va'achla, and he waits and it grows again. Hasan mishmat hu the kashamat va'achel. That's not considered a separate crop. All he's doing is instead of waiting for a full growth, he's cutting it off a little bit at a time. But he could have just waited for it to be fully grown, and he would have gotten the same amount in a month as he's getting by cutting it and letting it regrow. So that's not really three separate crops. So what about if he waited 3 months and he did 3 crops in 3 months? Like we said, aspasasa normally takes 1 full month. Let it be a chazaka. So according to this shita that we learned from Sharamud, even just 3 months of aspasasa should be a full-fledged chazakas gimel sham. And for the Gemara, man holchei usha, who is this holchei usha? Rabbi Yishmael. This is Rabbi Yishmael, who says le Rabbi Yishmael hachanami. Rabbi Yishmael taka holds like that. It's nan, like our Mishnah said. Rabbi Yishmael omer the medvamum b'stei halavan. That's only stay lovin. Alva b'stei ilan. But we said in the Mishnah taka that if you have an orchard with different types of trees, and you could harvest them at different times, and you could do them all in 1 year. Kana says to us, Masaka Zesa. I'm sorry. Kana to us, Kana says Kaita, Masaka. I'm sorry. I will stay in. Kana says to us, Masaka Zesa, Kana says Kaita. Elu Gimel Shanim. Then according to him, as long as you have separate crops, an Einachanami can be even in less than a year. So this will be the same thing. It will be Gimel Shanim. So according to Bishmal, Einachanami, you can learn it out from Shara Muad. It's not a kasha that it could be less than 3 years, because he holds that taka is a possibility. Okay, we're going to stop over here, and tomorrow we're going to learn different. Today we did Shara Muad as the source of Cheskes Gimel Shanim. Tomorrow we'll move on to the next source, the Cheskes Gimel Shanim. Okay, Shkayach.
Shkayach.
I feel like I'm back in, I don't know. It's like, this is like the classic hard Gemara. We're going to learn Cheskes